So I am beyond thrilled. It's not very often that I get to interview a mentor of mine, and it's a very exciting day to have Sara Connell here, CEO and founder of Thought Leader Academy. So Sara, thank you so much today for your time, and I can't wait to have you share with our audience some of the amazing things that you have shared with me over the last couple years.
I'm really excited to be here.
So we're going to talk that the title is going from corporate leader to thought leader.
Mhm.
And that was a big question that I had when we first met. And so a lot of exciting things, of course, as you know, have happened since then. But before we jump in and we start talking about that topic in particular, I thought I would ask a little bit about, I mean, you started your career in corporate. And so what, tell us a little bit about your story and what really inspired you to go from corporate to starting, and it wasn't easy starting, um,
Mhm.
and then, to scaling up to a, multi-million dollar thought leader business.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I sort of laugh about what inspired me to make the move. I We'll see if it was more inspiration or desperation, and so some of you may relate to this. Sometimes change is chosen consciously, and sometimes change is given to us, right? And it feels like that it was initiated externally, but it's always part of our life path. So I started my career in corporate, as you said. I went to Northwestern University. There was a big advertising agency that recruited from my university, and it was this really big deal to get selected because they chose like every year one woman and one man. Like it was this like very public thing, and I knew that was like that's the job I wanted. So I'm sure people watching, because you have like high performing leaders here. It's like I just was like that's mine. Like I'm getting that job, and so it was also the only creative because it was an advertising agency. It was the only a lot of consulting firms, financial firm, a lot of people like that would recruit on campus, but this was the one like creative, agency that recruited. And so I did get the job and I was so excited. And unfortunately, when I got in and actually ended up, starting the work there, I learned, of course, a tremendous amount. And I really wouldn't trade it because I think that if you're going to become a thought leader or going to become an entrepreneur, that training in corporate is actually like one of the best things we could ever do first, just because of the level of training, especially at a, Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 company, like those of you listening obviously have probably had experience with. So I did get great training there from a business, and marketing type of perspective. And it was like at the height of the Me Too era, like unchecked, just a really toxic environment. And I felt really trapped. Right. Because I'm a single woman supporting myself, and it's my first job out of college. And I felt like I couldn't think of what else I would be able to go do. And so I, kind of tried to figure it out. And I really spiraled into a mental and physical health crisis is really I stayed there for about 3 years. And so it was not inspiration that sort of, prompted my exit, but I found a book. Sheryl, you know this story well. I found a book in the Boston airport that by, a woman named Margaret Jonas, who is not famous or anything, but I just randomly grabbed her book. And that book produced an effect in me. Like I read it and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. Like if I stay going to this job, it's going to kill me. Like I knew it was my health, but I just knew I was going nowhere good. And so I just had that moment that like I was going to exit, and so I had a very much shorter than most of you listening, career in corporate. But it was terrifying. It was terrifying, even though what I was leaving was so awful. It was still absolutely terrifying because the myth, and I do want to speak to this. There was really a culture at that particular company, and maybe at a lot of companies, because I've heard this from many people who stayed, 30 years in corporate and then become thought leaders, that if you leave, you will be on the street. It was like almost like the picture that was painted is that you'll be like drinking out of the paper bag, like Edgar Allan Poe, and like like if you leave here, I mean, it was sort of cultish in that way, right? It was like something you'll be. And there was a woman, real quick, that I was watching because it was like she got out, like she was going to go paint, and I wanted to go write, and so I thought, oh my God, this woman's like doing it, and she rented the studio and she quit. She's like, I'm out of here, whatever. And 6 months later, she was back.
Oh no.
And I it was like the coffin nail, like that I felt, because I had looked at my boss's job, the corner office, the president. I was like, I don't want, you know, it's when you stop seeing yourself in the future of a place, right? Whether that happens at 3 years or 33 years. And that's really what happened. And because that book saved my life, which is how I talk about it, I vowed to pay that gift forward. Honestly, for the rest of my, I'm going to write the books that I don't know if they'll probably fail, but I'm going to do it. And then when the first book actually opened up doors like Oprah and the New York Times and, things that were these huge dreams and visions that I'd had, I vowed to make that my life's work, to make sure that other leaders who had that story, that message, that methodology, that unique way of seeing the world were in the airport bookstore when someone's spiraling the drain.
Yeah, I love that so much. And, I will, from, I guess, one thought leader to the other, I'll be the first to say it's not easy. And so I know it didn't start off easy for you. And so what was the mindset, just since, of course, my background in high performance mental toughness, I'm super interested in what is the mindset that allowed you from, going from where you started to where you are now, and also getting past the thoughts that maybe we've all had once or twice is, what am I doing?
Yes.
I mean, because you have to pass through that, before, I know it was true for me, before you get to the big speaking engagements and the big clients and the big impact.
Yes.
So,
It's such a good point because, we can hear these stories, like we hear the people, I was living in my car and now I have an island, and it's like, like what was the middle? What's the middle of that? And so I believe mindset is actually 100% of the game. And Sheryl, I'm on team Sheryl on this, right? Like people say, oh, it's 50%. It's 100% because the mindset has the power to either keep us in the game or take us out. Right. It just comes down. It's that. So I used to kind of caveat it with all this stuff. It's why it's built into everything we do in our coaching, and what you do, Sheryl, is so crucially important because it is, otherwise we won't do it if we don't line the mindset up or keep working on the mindset. So, I mean, yeah, the mindset was like, oh my God, I'm going to fail. I'm going to be on the street. I mean, it was, high stakes kind of stuff. But I think the refining fire that you're speaking about, the refining fire of those days, weeks, months, sometimes years, Sheryl, in your case, to go from, where you were speaking to where you want to be speaking and are speaking now. You think, why don't I go get a job? It's the Starbucks moment that like everyone talks like, should I just go get a job at Starbucks? I mean, what am I doing to myself? Like this feels so, it is the most it's the least ego gratifying thing we can ever do is start a business or work on becoming a thought, because the instant gratification is just not there, right? It's a process to not only write a book but bring it to market, or start the business or launch the program. So I think the mindset was really two things for me. One was thinking about the people who'd been willing to go through that refining fire and kind of through time and space passed me that torch. And so I'm talking about other books. Like I have that one book that, changed, saved my life. But there's been many, many books and speakers and thought leaders who have made a profound impact and changed the trajectory of my life without question. And I've now met some of these people, and as you have, and not a single one of them said, oh my gosh, I set this vision and it was so easy. And everyone said it was amazing. And I felt like I was amazing. And it was so, I mean, that's no one's story. Said no one ever who has done anything meaningful has never had that story. Everyone felt colossal imposter syndrome that Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, Elizabeth Gilbert, people talk about incapacitating at times levels of that type of mindset resistance. And so I think it was thinking about that they had the courage and they were willing to get on the stage or write the book so that my life and millions of other lives could be changed. And it's like that pay it forward piece was really helpful to me to just think of that, even though our mind will say, well, yeah, you're no Maya Angelou, and I absolutely am not, right? But so we got, that gremlin always pops up with that one. And the other thing was, and you all listening to this are peak performers and high achievers, so this will work for you. It's like there's just a piece where you do what the Navy SEALs call embrace the suck. Right. And you just say, this is part of the journey. Like if I want to drive from New York to California, like I'm going to go through Oklahoma, maybe, depending on what route I take. And it's not dissing on Oklahoma. It's a beautiful, I'm just like, there might be parts of it that are not, I wanted the ocean and I'm in the flatlands. I wanted the ocean. I wanted the ocean view. It's like, but there's a journey to get from New York by car to California. And you're going to go through terrain that's not, but it's under, and just going on almost like willed act as if kind of faith, and just saying like, I'm going to pretend that I'm going to be successful. I'm going to pretend that I still believe in myself. I'm going to pretend, act as if has really been important to me because I don't believe in myself most of the time. I mean,
Mhm.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so important. And also, too, for everyone listening, I love what Sarah's saying so much. And I also think of the common thread through what I've heard from over, gosh, 100, female executives. And that is that they have been kind of propelled forward when someone believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. And
Mm,
so they have said yes. I mean, that we always talk about when we were talking about the title of my book, Fearless
yeah.
Female Leader, doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means that you move forward anyway. And so, but they're in a common mentor that we had, used to say new level, new devil. So
Mhm.
I think when you are out of a corporate environment, at least I've seen in my, like a lot of women that I've spoken to and work with, it's that there's a level of discomfort. And so I like an invitation to do what you were talking about and also just be willing to be uncomfortable and also take your own advice as far as when someone offers something up to speak on a stage or a bigger stage or
Mhm.
I think about some of the things when we were working together that got offered up to me. I was like, oh God, am I
Right.
ready? No, you're not ready, but say yes and you will be
Yes.
ready, and that type of thing. So I love all of that so much. And so when we're talking about going from a corporate leader to
Mhm.
thought leader,
Yeah.
what do you think are like one or two of the most important things to think about? Because there are a lot of things, when it's like, oh my God, do I need to write a book? What about my website? And then what kind
Mhm.
of coaching am I going to do? How much do I charge for there's a lot of unknown. We're like in unfamiliar
Yeah.
territory. So what
Yes.
is like the most important thing to focus on?
Yeah, I think it can get very overwhelming very quickly. You think, do I need a podcast? Do I need to go on other people's podcast? And so I think that what I always love is starting with your ideal outcomes. And whether we define 1 to 3, when I'm working with someone, this well, Sheryl, it's like, what are the big 3? So if you're exiting corporate and a lot of people say, I want to be speaking on stages, getting paid to speak. I want to be, really create like a 100x impact. Like forget 10x. What I love about fearless female leaders is like F10x. That's the guys. All the men publish the 10x books. I think the women are publishing the 100x. Like I was like started writing. I was like, I don't know that I'm writing this book, but it's like the 100x, right? And so I think that what can get us out of the overwhelm is doing the Buddhist start with the end in mind. Like, where do you ultimately, is there that anchor image of you on the TEDx stage or on some place where you are making that legacy building impact, a foundation, a program, or whatever it is. And then I do think, I mean, Cheryl, you and I have invested over and over and over in mentors, and I always will forever. I have 2 right now. People, it's like, I think working with someone who has like can help you develop the strategic plan and sequence things in priority order. But I think pick one asset that you're going to start with just so that we don't get overwhelmed. So meaning if you just absolutely love speaking, then that's going to be the first place like you, and then it reverse engineers from there. What goes on the website is like really positioning you in that way as like if we back up a step though, right? Because I'm even hearing myself and picturing if someone's leaving or thinking about, their exit, really the pre-step is what do you want to be your flag in the ground? So I always do this gesture because it's kind of my like somatic anchor,
Mhm.
device of like the flag in the ground. That's the what you're known for. So a fun extra, and this is a mindset one too, is like ask you at the end of your life. You just picture I'm 90, I'm in perfect health, my mind's working great. You go tap on the shoulder of your 90-year-old self who's living her best life and, doing awesome and say, like, what is the thing? What is the thing when I'm getting towards the end of my life, not starting this chapter, that I really could have made the most impact with and got known for, right? And that helps with the mindset of, believing in ourselves, but also what is that flag in the ground? Because the truth is a book or a signature talk, a TEDx, a podcast, those are all the doorways. They're the portals for someone to experience your thought leadership, to receive your impact, right? And lead toward if you are going to coach or consult, do something along those lines, the pathway for people to go do that with you and have that level of trust and rapport with you. So I think defining the flag in the ground, right? And some of you listening might absolutely know what that is. It's like, I want to be the known person in X, or I want to be the next, if you've got some leader, thought leader that's been, it's like, I want to be kind of the next, my version of whoever it is, Michelle Obama, Tony Robbins, whatever, whoever your person is, right? Can be helpful. But identifying that flag in the ground, and then it's just, which asset do you enjoy the most first? Do you like to speak? Do you like to interview? In which case the podcast might be your first thought leader asset, that way that you can post that flag around your topic. It could be the book. It could be, the TEDx talk. Knowing that, Sheryl, you've had this experience, if you do want to speak, at some point you're going to need the book, because there's a lot of speaking engagements that require that, right? They require that asset. So I think the first part is to calm ourselves down and just say, what do I want to leave this planet? What's the legacy? What's the message, the movement? We call it, women starting movements, right? And then once you know what that flag in the ground is going to be, then you decide which thing is the most fun for you to create first. I would start with one that then lead people to those of you that are going to, build a business around it, coach, consult, whatever. Is it the book? Is it at the Doria podcast, a talk? You decide.
Yeah. And I think too, so for some people are watching this, probably having aha moments of like, yes, I can do one thing. Which I know I have to do one thing at a time. It was very comforting for me. And I love what you were saying, because I think it's very important, because for years and years and years, it's one thing thinking about what you want to do. Like, do you want to coach one-on-one? Do you want to
Mhm.
coach one-to-many? Do you want to be a speaker? Do you like, what do you want to do? But I also, and to find joy in it, like to do what you love, not what you think you should be doing. But I also, to your point, think that is so important for marketing too. Like, don't start a podcast if you hate the idea of being on video, or you just don't like having these conversations, or the finding joy in your marketing is just gold. So I want you to hold on to that. And some people might be going, oh God, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't really thought about if I were going to tap my 90-year-old self. Like,
Yeah.
some people are breathing some fresh air, and some people it's like maybe be like a little constricting, and just
For sure.
adding, even adding on to that, thinking about in your corporate role. Obviously, if you've been doing it for a really, really, really long time and you're
Yeah.
amazing at it, which is, I know that you are if you're listening, think about the things that you loved that maybe you were constricted and didn't
Yes.
have the freedom to do there, and maybe expand on that, and then go into thinking about like what Sarah was saying, as far as what is the one thing from there that you love that you could serve at the highest level. Because I think the other thing that you were saying is so important too, thinking of the one thing, but also thinking what is in your heart and who do you want to serve, and maybe name that person and think it's
Yes.
the person, and then how do you scale your service to that person? I don't know. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah, Cheryl, I think that's the next step. Like, once we have that, is such a, so it's like, I love Venn diagrams. So if anyone else listening, so it's like the Venn diagram of, we've got a circle, right? If you imagine Venn diagrams, we've got a circle that's like what you, maybe what you're a badass in at your current position, as a a C-suite, a leader, right? These are the skills you've honed that you do like, you love, that you've honed. You're like, I'm a freaking incredible negotiator. I'm an incredible front of the house, or I have an amazing ops mind, or systems, or whatever. And then the next circle, you see where that overlaps with, like Sheryl said, what have you not gotten to express, right? A lot of times we're in a role that it doesn't call forth all of us, all of our gifts and talents. So like, what do you love that maybe you didn't get to be as creative as you wanted, or you didn't get to be as whatever? So where does that overlap? And then who you serve is the third circle, right? And what we were going to go for is like who you would love to be of service to and make an impact on. And where those three overlap is your gold, right? That's where you're going to be on fire. That's where you're going to be excited. And then, you can also ask people, like, if you're not sure where to take that Venn diagram inner circle to like a flag in the ground of like like you said, the marketing, how do you position yourself? Then I have a thought for you. I have a thought, but I want to, before I go there, Sheryl, talk about, then it's like, how do you think about what you want to give people? Guess what? Marketing is great listening. Then you go to those people in that who you serve circle of your Venn diagram, and you just talk to 10 of them. talk to 10 of them and say, I am bringing in, here's my skills and my passions. Really, it's kind of skills, passions meets your people's needs. And I'm designing coaching or a program or something for a course, for people like you. And I'm thinking of it including, what would you want? And people will just tell you. They will literally write your sales page for you. Let's say, I wish it had this. I wish you could help me with this. I want to be here, and just transcribe those. And then you don't have to do any like sitting in a room with a blank screen, the cursor. I know we don't have cursors anymore, but I always pictured that, that thing just sitting at you with a blank screen. You're like,
Yes.
what do I do? We don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. You go and just talk to people and listen, and they'll tell you, and then you look for the common threads, that you hear, and that's how you make your offer. Whatever your first, whether it's one-on-one coaching or whatever, you say, they'll tell you exactly what they need, right? And just so you just to give this one little middle spot, if you don't know what that, again, that like how to position that flag in the ground. So I'm working with someone, he's exiting, he thought it was going to be a 3-year exit. He found out, so he was like, I'm just really far out. I want to make this, you know, C-suite to thought leader, in a couple years. And then he found out that the exit has been accelerated, and it's like 6 months to a year. Like, they're actively in search, which he's thrilled because he really wanted to have it happen sooner, but also now it's scary because it's real. And so he messaged me and said, Sarah, like, I know we're talking about women leaders, but this is just like, I've just, been on with him the last week. So I'm remembering this, and it's the same, for everybody. And I said, hey, Joe, because he said, I don't know, it's so soon. I don't know what I'm positioned. I don't know my thing. And I said, send me some presentations that you've done. And he'd written newsletter. I just, send me some stuff. Send me some of your thought leadership at your company as a corporate leader. And I knew he was going to come back and want to do, and I just want to say this to everyone listening. The temptation is like, I'll do a book of my greatest lessons learned. And you can do that, but positioning it as that is not, it's not for your person, right? It's not through their lens. So he sent me the things, that he sent me a talk and some other stuff. And there was this one moment in one of the talks that just showed his thought leadership so minutely. It was like this one move, and he'd done it in packaged goods, and he'd done it in like a digital startup. He'd worked, in different industries, but there was this kind of one strategic move that he used in these different industries, as he, led companies and built companies and sold companies. And I said, that's your flag in the ground. And it has a fun name. And I won't say it only because like I signed an NDA that, he's coming up, but that's going to be the title of his book and the name of his consulting. And the thing, it's like, that's his like tipping point. Like, think Malcolm Gladwell, right? We all even use that term. So it's thinking about like from corporate leader to thought leader. When we're a corporate leader, we don't have to package and market this stuff usually in the same way. Maybe you are for clients, but like, you're not, for your own thought leadership. So sometimes having another eye, you can have just someone else look at you from zoomed out, and then just be able to kind of like an eagle, kind of going there,
Mhm.
right? And to see where that's going to hit the people you serve, right? Because we get overwhelmed. It's like our whole life. It's like my passions and my skills, and so that's just a technique. You can have someone look at it from a higher vantage point that can think into your ideal person and say that.
Yeah, I love that so much, because a lot of times that, at least that I've found in my clients, that they don't think that their superpower is a superpower because it's so pedestrian to
Right.
them.
Exactly.
I want to say they take it for granted. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean,
Yeah.
they just don't see it.
Right.
And so I love that so much, just sending some things, different things, whether it's
Right.
written or video or
Mm-hmm.
you, because then it's just a fresh set of eyes and someone who sees the genius, in it. So I love that so much. So for everyone listening, whether you are excited or whether you're freaking out a little bit because you're a little overwhelmed, I got you. Sarah, do you have some resources or, some
Yeah.
help, or what's the call to action for someone who this is really resonating with?
Yeah, so what I like, we came up with a 7-step blueprint for any of you that think, even if you're, 3 years out, 1 year out, or you're in it now, you can use these 7 steps, that will help you take kind of identify, it'll help you with your Venn diagram, it'll help you with that, what is the flag in the ground, and how could you actually, what's a framework you could use to turn that into your first thought leader asset? I take you through, if you wanna turn it into a book, but you could turn it into a talk or a podcast or anything else. And so we'll have that in the share. I'll share that with you to share with anyone in your audience, completely free. And you'll just get this workbook essentially that's going to walk you through, maybe if ideas are percolating from today, to take it out of like all over, like what could this actually look like, and do some vision casting with it.
Yeah, I think that would be super helpful. And even if you think you have it figured out, because I find that it's good to revisit this, at least a couple times a year anyway.
Me too.
So
Yeah.
what a great resource. So Sara Connell, thank you so much. It's been really an honor to be in your world the last couple of years, and I super appreciate you sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure to get to be on the journey with you, Sheryl.